And as you may know, as we intro the show early on, we mentioned that May happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month. And you may be wondering why we have all these plants here in the studio this morning. We are going to be talking about gardening your mental health. And joining me in the studio is Ivy Enyonam, who is a plant consultant. Good morning, Enyonam.
Good morning, Jifa.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. How's your Saturday morning?
It's always calm with plants.
Oh, I know, right? Anyway, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you.
Let me start off by asking you, what is mental health and how does it marry when it comes to plant?
Okay, so mental health is essentially taking care of your mental, which is how we think, what we do. I always like to use the example of your car. When you have a car and your plugs aren't working, chances are the plug isn't the problem. There's probably an underlying factor. So for a lot of illnesses, it usually starts with your brain. Okay, so if you are not okay mentally, if you are not calm enough, if you are always anxious, you're more likely to develop like a heart disease or something like that. So basically, mental health is making sure that your brain is in the right space so that your body can work better.
All right. So these are some of your some plants from your home.
From my renting collection, yes.
Right.
I do plant rentals. So
great. Now, when we are talking plant creativity, because these are various different types of plants, and I'm sure every one of them has a name.
Yes.
When we are talking plant creativity, how does mental health benefit plant creativity?
Okay, so there have been several tests and research because it all started with, wait, why do we feel better when we are by plants? Most people would just actually leave here to Ebri or to the Volta region because Charlie Accra is stressful and I want to get out. And you realize that and some even say when you drive out of Accra and you start to see the greenery, the air changes, you start to feel better, you know. It's actually research that helps us to understand the reason for that. So the whole idea is each and every plant is unique. And the reason we are stressed out is because we are in our head about the things we need to achieve and the things we need to do. You get it? And our surroundings. But with plants, by the time you start looking at each pattern, as a creative, personally for me, it gives me ideas on a daily. You know when you have like plastic plants in your space, when you come out and you enter the room, it's the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
Yes.
Okay, maybe when we're coming today, this one that is crooked right now was standing up. Now it's crooked. Your mind will have to shift off everything to wonder, why is everyone else straight and this one is crooked? And by doing that, scientists have discovered that it actually relaxes you and it releases happy hormones into your system. And when you're happy, you create.
Of course, most definitely. When you're happy, you create. Now, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And you've mentioned the fact that plant releases stress, but also, if I may ask, it releases stress, anxiety, and all that. What educational opportunities does gardening provide? Because you mentioned that these plants are from your rental collections. So what educational opportunities does gardening provide?
Educational opportunities. I think that in terms of educational opportunities, maybe botanists. Personally, I'm not a botanist, so I can't speak to it. I actually got into plants because I was sick. And I needed to get better. And so I started researching on some of the things that could help me get better. And one of the things I saw was plants. So I went into it hoping that I would get better air in my area. And then I realized that, well, I still had a bit of panic attack, anxiety, and things like that. So with time, now I wasn't just buying the plants and putting in my space. I was actually putting my hand in the soil and trying to figure out why they are the way they are, the roots and everything, how to make it feel better in my space and all that. And I realized that actually, most people think that plants clean your air. and that's why they want it. But I have come to realize that plants calm you down. I don't remember the last time I needed a paracetamol.
Wow.
There was this time I had a mad headache. I had a friend around, and I said, you know what, I'm coming. And I went out, got my gardening tools, and started gardening. In like an hour, the headache was gone. And since then, anytime I have a headache, I'm stressed. You know, headaches are usually from stress.
Yeah.
You don't have to take medication all the time because those have side effects. So I would rather try gardening, something that would relax me, let me come back into my body and appreciate the nature around me, you know. So in terms of that, I think that personally, I'll just take it from an experience point of view
Right.
because I'm not...
In a family setting where you have, let me take you for example, in a family setting where you have your extended family or even nuclear family around you and you are doing this and they don't want to get involved, how do you make the whole gardening activity or getting acquainted with plants engaging for even a child to want to do these? Because I'm sure it may have an effect, a positive one at that, even on a very little child, as much as it will on an elderly person.
It's true. Actually, there has been research again that shows that it calms children down. I think that's the reason if you grew up in a house that had a lot of trees and ground, not tiles or terrazzo, you know that you'd always find the children in the soil. And I have been wondering myself, like when I started working with plants and I realized how calm it made me, it took me back to when we were kids and we always wanted to be in the ground and in the soil, and suddenly it made sense. We don't understand why you tell the child, don't go and play in the sun, and then they still keep going. It's because that's where they find clarity and calm. So there's actually research that for kids that are very on edge all the time, stubborn and things like that, when you actually teach them how to garden and they fall in love with it, they tend to pay more attention to plants because they've seen something beautiful grow. I have a friend who gardens with her son, and it's always beautiful to watch. I don't know if there's a connection, but he would come to me and not be with his mom if I'm around, because we connect on the level of planting and putting things together and watching them grow. And it puts their attention in one space so that there isn't too much friction. And children are usually restless. That's why they kick things around, throw things around and things like that.
Right.
But if you can give them something to focus on, what's better way than to connect them to the earth?
I have a house. I live in a rented apartment. I want to start gardening to release stress, for relaxation, for easing my headache, or just getting a cool space or a space where I can go and then know that when I am here, this is my safe place to connect with nature.
Yeah.
I don't have the garden, I don't have the soil, I don't have the space to do all of these. How can I be creative about growing plants to also have my little garden somewhere that can go and have my quiet time or even read?
That's a good question, because I live in a rented apartment. Okay. I live in a rented apartment and I live upstairs, and I have about 200 to 250 plants upstairs. So what I did initially, my worry was, of course, my name is Ivy, so I've always loved plants. I'm a plant. But my worry was, oh, I live in a rented apartment. When I get my own place, then I start. But when I got sick and I had to start. And one of the things that makes it easy is, one, we have pots, okay, and plants do very well in pots. You just have to figure out which pot works best for them. So for some plants, example, most people like clay pots. Now, what clay pots does in our climate is, we already have a very dry climate. So clay pots extracts the water around the plant. So for that reason, you want to use clay pots for plants that do not like too much water, so that it's easy for the water to leave them. You want to repurpose some of it. I do that a lot. I'm very big on sustainability and recycling. So I recycle most of my drinking water bottles, and I put them into new I just cut them up. I put a little bit of soil in it, and then I put a plant in it, and I'm good to go. So there's so many ways you can do it. Personally, I have about 180 plants in my living room. And they are fine and they are living good. So,
wow.
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't wake up stressed at all.
I can imagine, because waking up in a garden full of plants as we
Yeah.
are here, it's so relieving and then
There's
soothing.
something especially, so I'm a very morning person, and so I used to wake up anxious all the time, because what wakes me up is the things I have to do.
But I'm sure plants have helped you
Listen,
overcome that anxiety.
It's been very
So
good.
if you're watching at home, I mean, this is a cue for you to start your little garden. You can start in a bottle, in a pot, anything at all that you have that you want to discard. You can start small, and then who knows, you may also start your own garden or your own farm right in your home. So we've been speaking to Ivy Enyonam. Ivy, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
we
you.
hope to see you again another time, and good luck to your gardening adventure.
Thank you.
We will all take a cue from it.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I have a workshop that I do to teach people how to work on plants.
Right.
I'm doing one next week.
So how
if
can
you're
people reach
interested,
out to you? Quickly?
you can reach out to me on my social media at
Right.
ivyenyonam_. The workshop is called Sip and Soil. So I'm trying to find fun ways to engage people in terms of
All right.
draw you in with alcohol or party, and then we plant
All
and we
right.
have fun.
Okay. So that's Ivy, and she's a plant consultant. We've been speaking about gardening and your mental health.